I'm Spider-Man then.
My name is Matt Murdock. I'm your attorney.
Yes!
Unless their superpower is money, superheroes need a day job. Saving the day doesn't always pay. Those suits don't pay for themselves either. And sometimes that day job can come in handy. The last we saw of Spidey in Spider-Man Far From Home was when J Johah Jameson outed Peter Parker as the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man as the killer of Mysterio. Peter might need a good lawyer. He might need a fearless lawyer like Matt Murdock. Get it? Because Matt Murdock is Daredevil, the man without fear? Ah, you get it, that's right. And now we'll explore exactly how Matt Murdock may save the day in the next solo Spider-Man outing. Tragedy isn't a new thing to superheroes. Just about every superhero has a dead relative or loved one, the ones that sent them on the crime-fighting path and towards some thematic fashion choices. But life does manage to pile on Peter Parker. Poor Peter puts up with a lot of problems. Just when he finds a girlfriend whose dad isn't a psycho black market weapons dealer, Mysterio's able to score one last blow by outing Peter as Spider-Man. And this was all after S.H.I.E.L.D. went through the trouble of making up Night Monkey. Peter Parker doesn't have the resources of Tony Stark, who was able to out himself as Iron Man. Sure, there's the danger it puts Aunt May, MJ, and Ned in, but there are other issues. As far as we know, the Sokovia Accords are still in effect, and Spider-Man was still doing his thing. But then there's the more pressing matter of the death of Quentin Beck and the doctored footage that blames Peter. Who can Peter turn to for legal advice? Someone who might have both law and superhero experience? Jennifer Walters, the She-Hulk? Well, yeah. But there's another superhero by night, lawyer by day that Spider-Man has a long history with, who might just be searching for a way back into the MCU, and that's Matt Murdock, the Daredevil. With the untimely end of the Netflix Marvel shows and Kevin Feige's vague response regarding the future of the characters, there might be a window where Matt Murdock joins the MCU as the legal representation for Peter Parker. Peter himself swung into the MCU as a supporting character in a Captain America movie, and having Iron Man featured prominently in the first MCU Spider-Man movie, the shared universe has been using that crossover ability to welcome new heroes into the mix. So what would it look like if Peter Parker's legal problems were handled by the Man Without Fear? A lot like the comic books, actually. First of all, we have to establish exactly what kind of legal trouble Peter might be in. A lot of that question relies on exactly what is the state of S.H.I.E.L.D. in a post-blip world. Since the founding of the Avengers, S.H.I.E.L.D. has gone from secret and not so secret to OMG, have you heard S.H.I.E.L.D. secret? Yeah, they've been infiltrated by Hydra. During the event of Captain America Winter Soldier, when the world found out that Hydra and S.H.I.E.L.D. were making strange bedfellows, Nick Fury also decided to let the world think that the Winter Soldier was successful in killing the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. Since then, the super spy agency has been kinda in and out, but S.H.I.E.L.D. is still more or less underground. While they apparently have the power to reroute a high school summer trip at will, they don't look eager to get into that prime spotlight again. Not to mention that the real Nick Fury is out in space with the Skrulls. How long has Talos been posing as Nick Fury? We don't know just yet. Regardless, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s ability to correct the record regarding Mysterio's mysterious death and Peter Parker's role in it might not be enough, especially with a hot-headed media personality like J Johah Jameson heading the charge that Peter should be charged. The issue with the Sokovia Accords is a little trickier, but also one that even a Talos Fury might not be able to handle. After all, Parker was not just working on the request, but the absolute insistence of Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. If S.H.I.E.L.D. is cooperating with the United Nations on the Accords, then Peter can be a signatory. But S.H.I.E.L.D. and the US government is not allowed to have Peter operate in other countries without their permission. In short, even if Talos, Fury, and S.H.I.E.L.D. did some quick after-the-fact authorization, there's gonna be some legal maneuvers. But with all the resources of both S.H.I.E.L.D. and Stark Industries at Peter's disposal, Happy isn't gonna let Aunt May's favorite nephew get in trouble if he wants that summer fling to last any longer. Why would Peter employ a blind lawyer known for pro bono cases involving criminals apprehended by vigilantes? There's a fair bit of precedent for it. As one of the two prominent lawyers by day, superheroes by night, Daredevil has been involved in the tricky world of superhero law just about everywhere he's been, on the screen or in the pages of the comics. In the comics, Matt Murdock has crossed his moonlighting job and his day job often. In fact, he had a similar issue with his secret identity, and none other than Peter Parker was there to help out his Hell's Kitchen-based superhero colleague by appearing as Daredevil in court for Murdock to question. Surely a courtroom can't have a witness testify in a disguise that violates the Sixth Amendment. That's the one with the confrontation clause that says that someone has the right to be confronted by the witnesses against them. Who said comics weren't also educational, huh? That can be a bit tricky in our regular world without superheroes and secret identities, but in the comic book world, it's even more complicated. Well, the right for vigilantes to maintain their identities while still testifying in court was taken to the Supreme Court by, you guessed it, Matt Murdock. It's a full-on legal drama. Comic books aren't the only place that Matt Murdock has appeared in court on behalf of superheroes. Long ago, in a shared universe that was far less spectacular, there was a popular, if a little dated, live-action TV series for The Incredible Hulk, which gave us the classic line,
"Don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry."
Years after the end of that show, there was a handful of made-for-TV movies that continued the story of David Banner. Yeah, we meant to say David. The TV people thought the alliteration of Bruce Banner would be too much for the TV audiences. A man who turns into a super strong rage monster was fine, but a guy with a first and last name that started with the same letter was a bridge too far. One of those made-for-TV films was The Trial of the Incredible Hulk, as the legal troubles for Banner finally caught up with him. The movie featured a few notable guests, including the mighty Thor, and the first of the classic Stan Lee cameos. Banner's lawyer was, naturally, Matt Murdock. Even on Netflix, Murdock can't completely separate his crime-fighting and lawyering lives. In the second season of the show, he manages to bring in Frank Castle, the man the press call the Punisher, and turns around and represents Castle in court to make sure that he's treated fairly and the people responsible for Castle's unhinged nature are brought to justice.
Frank Castle is actually a good man. He doesn't know the difference between right and wrong anymore, and he doesn't need punishment for that. He needs help.
Thanks to the manipulation of Wilson Fisk again, this doesn't all work out exactly to plan. When it comes to superheroes and court cases, Matt Murdock is the go-to, and Jennifer Walters, Bruce Banner's cousin, lawyer, and She-Hulk. While Walters is still waiting in the wings to join the MCU or any medium outside of animation and comics, it's Daredevil and Spider-Man's long-standing relationship that makes Murdock a better fit for Parker. The MCU's Peter Parker might have been to space and spent his second movie globetrotting while fighting Mysterio's illusions. Despite all that, Spider-Man has generally been more of a friendly neighborhood type. In defending his New York neighborhood, he has managed to rack up one of the more impressive rogues galleries, and he shares some key figures in that rogues gallery with Daredevil. The most notable, of course, is Kingpin. Wilson Fisk made his first appearance in the pages of The Amazing Spider-Man number 50 back in 1967, but over the course of time, Kingpin has also managed to harbor a special hate for Daredevil. At one point, he practically started a war in Hell's Kitchen just to destroy both Murdock and Daredevil. As a result, Spider-Man and Daredevil have teamed up on more than a few occasions. Of course, that's just the comic book history that the two characters have, but it doesn't cover the elephant in the set-top streaming box, does it? Namely, the already critically acclaimed, presumably MCU Daredevil played by Charlie Cox on Netflix. Once the pride of the non-theatrical end of the MCU, the Netflix shows allow the MCU to explore some of its darker and more street-level heroes with more complex stories. It was a perfect fit for the conflicted Catholic superhero, whose stories can take a darker turn. But things haven't stayed rosy between Netflix and Marvel, especially with Disney announcing that their own streaming service, Disney Plus, will feature Avengers-based shows like Falcon and the Winter Soldier and WandaVision. Soon after the announcement of Disney Plus, the Marvel Netflix shows were quietly canceled one by one. Any hopes that the shows would simply pick up where they left off in their new home were hampered by a waiting period that Marvel has until they can use the characters again. For Daredevil, that just makes him off limits until 2021, just in time for a third Spider-Man movie. As well received as Daredevil was, it wasn't all sunshine and pancakes between Marvel and Netflix in the development of the shows, which is credited for some of the rift, and perhaps Marvel's willingness to scrap the shows as canon and start again. Making things even more complicated is the internal divisions between Marvel Studios and Marvel Entertainment that has made coordinating the MCU's television properties and film properties that much more difficult. Even Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., featuring Phase 1 favorite Phil Coulson from Iron Man, Thor, The Avengers, and even Captain Marvel, has had a harder and harder time staying in sync with the MCU. Slowly, the show has less and less to do with the movie continuity as time has gone on. Now shows like Cloak and Dagger on Freeform and The Runaways on Hulu only play slight lip service to the larger MCU. But with world-changing events like Thanos and the Blip, it's increasingly likely these shows exist in a different timeline than the one in the movies. At least that's what Feige seems to be implying when the issues of the Defenders characters appearing in the MCU comes up. He's indicated that they will appear, but to say anything else would be a spoiler. This could be Feige covering for the fact that they haven't settled on a plan, or that they very much have and are trying to preserve the surprise, something they've been very good about up to this point. The multiverse is set to take center stage in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Could Strange's trip through the multiverse be how these continuity issues are resolved, thus opening the door for Matt Murdock to represent Peter Parker in court? Time will tell, but there's definitely precedent. Or as a lawyer friend would say, it's arguable. That's how Matt Murdock might end up helping Peter Parker out of his legal troubles and make his way back into the MCU. What do you think? How will Peter get out of the bind that Mysterio put him in? And what do you think the pathway for the Defenders is to the post-Netflix MCU? Let us know in the comments, and while you're there, go ahead and hit the subscribe button for all the latest videos.